promote research on the interface between health and religion at the Harvard School of Public Health. And he is this year's recipient of our prestigious Jon Snow Award. Before I bring him up to the stage, I will call Dr. Shirley Cramer, who represents the Royal Society of Public Health, London, UK, to provide some remarks on behalf of the Royal Society.
Thank you very much, Oscar. I'm really thrilled to be here, actually, because, well, obviously, to be at APHA, but the EPI section of APHA has a very, very personal, we admire the work of the EPI section, I should say, and the fact that we've had a long and productive relationship with our friends in the EPI section here, and not just because of Jon Snow, but also because of the people involved and the work you have been doing. So I really want to pay tribute to all of you and the work you've done. And I think we've just heard about some extraordinary, an extraordinary person, extraordinary work. And it strikes me that we live in extraordinary times, both in the USA and the UK. And I was doing a session earlier with your former Surgeon General, and it was on, we were looking at international perspectives in public health. And interestingly, we both feel that we're at very challenging times with the same kind of challenges, and the more that we can share and do things together, the better it's going to be, and taking good practice from whichever country we find it and sharing it and tailoring it to that. For those of you that don't know, the Royal Society for Public Health is the oldest public health organisation in the world, just beating APHA, I think, at 160 years, which we're very proud of. And we're a membership organisation, we have loads of educational programmes, we do lots of campaigning, all the things that you would expect us to do. But our big vision is about making a difference, and I think that really is what Jon Snow was about and what the Jon Snow Award is about. The thing about Jon Snow, and about many of you in epidemiology, is that you're not frightened to talk about A, the things that matter, and B, the truth. And why we revere Jon Snow so much is that, like Semmelweis, he went against the grain of what everybody was saying at the time. It is so hard to do that. It's so hard, and he did that, just as our previous recipient has done, the Dr. Mona that we just heard about. And how brave is that? How brave are our epidemiologists to be able to do that in what is a very strikingly difficult society, where lots of the things that we are all trying to achieve are often politically not salient at this particular time. I mean, you have your own challenges with the administration, and we have our Brexit challenges and many other things happening at this time. But people who are seeking the truth will always win out, and I think that the role model of the epidemiologist, and Jon Snow, who's our particular hero, but I think there are many heroes in this area, have lots to teach us, because Jon Snow did do the public health intervention of taking the pump handle off. He took action, and one of the things that I took from yesterday's opening ceremony was how important it is right now that all of us take action and stand up and be counted. It's certainly very clear that in the UK that's the situation. And I think by looking at our heroes of the past, the people that we admire and respect in for public health, that we can learn many things that are relevant for us today. So I think that at this particular time, making that difference, telling truth to power, which is very difficult, is what this award is about. And to do it jointly with APHA and the EPI section is great for us. We're so proud of Jon Snow that actually our building in London where we are, where our staff are, is called Jon Snow House, and we have marvellous pictures of him everywhere. And Oscar has mentioned the pub, and the Royal Society of Public Health has the Jon Snow Society, which is part of our organisation, but and also with the School for Tropical, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And the pub is plays a very important role in the AGM, and I have never, well, I can see some people have obviously been to an AGM because they're laughing at the epidemiologists who stand on tables in the pub and shout, and the poor students who are standing around who have no idea why these these older people are all running riot in the pub, which is exactly what they do. It's a great, I would say, if you can ever get to a Jon Snow Society AGM, it will be, you will enjoy it. And we were reminded again of him just this week because, in a big way, because, I don't know, anybody watch Game of Thrones? Yes. Oh, okay, so you will know that there is a Jon Snow in the Game of Thrones. And the actor's name is Kit Harington, very famous in England, probably can't go out anywhere, including the Jon Snow pub. But he was asked last week in the media, so who's your favourite Jon Snow? Because we've got a cricketer, we've got a TV presenter, so there are quite a few Jon Snows. And he said unequivocally that his favourite Jon Snow was the Jon Snow who made the breakthrough in discovering the source of the cholera epidemic. So Kit Harington will be made an honourable member of Jon Snow Society. And you heard it here first. So I am absolutely delighted that on behalf of the Royal Society of Public Health, the EPI group here at APHA, to award the Jon Snow Award, and it may look humble, but actually it's very nice. The Jon Snow mug and the Jon Snow tie and the Jon Snow membership card. And I'm delighted to present this to Dr. Tyler VanderWeele.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nope.
Come on, Laurie. All right, let's turn around and do it this way. This is a hefty one, so.
I got shortchanged. Thankfully. One. Thank you. Congratulations.
Yes.
Also, what do you go for?
I would like to thank the awards committee for this tremendous honor of receiving the Jon Snow Award. It has been a privilege and a joy to be able to contribute to this discipline of epidemiology, and it's a joy and humbling to be recognized in honor of one of our discipline's founding figures, Jon Snow. I still remember seeing the site of the Broad Street pump for the first time some years ago, and visited the pub, and believe it or not, joined the Jon Snow Society at that time. Jon Snow's reasoning concerning the source of the cholera outbreak was grounded, at least in part, in quantitative comparison, and such quantitative comparison continues to be of importance to our discipline today. And it's certainly been a substantial part of my own contributions to epidemiology, the development of new quantitative methodologies. I think we have a great deal to be proud of as epidemiologists, as a discipline of epidemiology, and we've of course contributed substantially to public health, but I believe we also have a great deal to be proud of in terms of methodology. Over the past several years, I've had the opportunity of comparing our own discipline to that of many other social sciences, and I've been increasingly impressed by the shape of our discipline and by what we've accomplished. The proportion of studies that make use of longitudinal rather than cross-sectional designs, our careful control for confounding and clear causal thinking, the development and use of large cohort study data resources that can be used to address a multitude of questions, and the two-way interplay between theory and empirical work, while also retaining an openness to potentially exploratory or hypothesis-free analyses without necessarily being grounded in theory. All of these I do take as methodological strengths of our discipline. Much of my own methodologic research these past years has focused on the topics of mediation and interaction, questions of mechanisms, of explanation, and I believe it is in part at least for that I am being recognized today. But today I would like to offer a few brief remarks with regard to ways I think our discipline of epidemiology could be methodologically strengthened even further. Over the past couple of years, I've spent considerable time reflecting on this question, and earlier this year published a series of 3 papers explicating some of these reflections. First, I believe we need to take sensitivity analysis for unmeasured confounding for other biases more seriously. Most of the data we work with is observational in nature, and biases, despite our best efforts, do remain. And I think we need to do a better job of evaluating when our conclusions are or are not robust to such biases. These sensitivity analysis techniques have, of course, been around for decades, but they are still rarely used. Often they're viewed as being too difficult to implement in practice, or too difficult to report, or too difficult to interpret. So to that end, and in part to address some of these concerns, I recently introduced a new metric, the E-value, to try to standardize and simplify these questions of sensitivity analysis in practice. It appeared just in August in the Annals of Internal Medicine, defined as the minimum strength of association on the risk ratio scale that a measured confounder would have to have with both the exposure and the outcome, above and beyond the measured covariates, to explain away the observed exposure outcome association. I think if this metric in observational studies were to supplement the p-value, our inferences with regard to how robust our conclusions are would be on stronger footing. A larger e-value means that the robustness of our conclusions are much more substantial, can be easily computed, reported, and interpreted, and applied across a range of different outcome scales. My hope is that its introduction will increase and standardize the use of sensitivity analysis in practice and help us to take questions of robustness more seriously. Second, I think that for each of our exposures that we study, we should look at multiple outcomes at once. We should move towards an outcome-wide epidemiology. For some exposures, such as alcohol consumption or hormone replacement therapy, the effects on some outcomes are positive and the effects on other outcomes are detrimental. And so it's important to see all of these at once in a single study. Looking at multiple outcomes at once will help us to determine what exposures and interventions are beneficial, not just for a single outcome, but for many. It will help shape our public health priorities. I've also argued in my article that methodology for an outcome-wide epidemiology is more straightforward and makes more sense than an exposure-wide epidemiology once we move beyond the genetics context. Third, and relatedly, I think we should examine a broader range of outcomes. People care not only about physical health, but also about their social relationships, about meaning and purpose, about happiness. If we were to take the World Health Organization's definition of health seriously as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not only the absence of disease or infirmity, then we should examine these other outcomes as well. Impressive work has been carried out within epidemiology considering the effects of social support or of purpose in life as exposures and examining their effects on physical health. But I believe we should also look at these as outcomes, not only as exposures. in my paper published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, USA, on the promotion of human flourishing, I have laid out a vision as to how we might do this. I believe that these three directions, greater sensitivity analysis, outcome-wide epidemiology, and the incorporation of flourishing outcomes, perhaps amongst others, would strengthen methodologically our discipline yet further. It has truly been a pleasure being a part of this community of epidemiology and public health and being able to contribute to it. And a pleasure also being here with you today to receive the Jon Snow Award. Thank you.
We'll take the picture. Not that we're taking it back.
I will now call upon our past chair, Dr. Robin Taylor Wilson, to introduce the Wade Hampton Frost Lectureship.
Good afternoon. It's a delight to be here. It's so nice to see everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It is my honor and privilege to introduce this year's Wade Hampton Frost Lectureship Award winner, Dr. Jonathan M. Samet. Dr. Samet is a pulmonary physician and epidemiologist, and last month became the Dean of the School of Public Health in Colorado. He was previously the Distinguished Professor and Flora L. Thornton Chair of the Department of Preventive Medicine at the Keck School of Medicine at the University of Southern California, and Director of the USC Institute for Global Health. Dr. Samet received his bachelor's degree in chemistry and physics from Harvard College, an MD degree from the University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry, and a Master of Science degree in epidemiology from the Harvard School of Public Health. His research has focused on health risks of inhaled pollutants, particles, and ozone in outdoor air and indoor pollutants, including secondhand smoke and radon. He has also investigated the occurrence and causes of cancer and respiratory diseases, emphasizing the risks of active and passive smoking. He has served on numerous committees of the National Research Council and Institute of Medicine. And just so you know, his bio is actually much longer, and he's sort of hatched out some of these things just to make it shorter for us. But suffice it to say, many other wonderful activities that he's participated in. For several decades, he has been involved in global health, focusing on tobacco control, air pollution, and chronic disease prevention. He chaired the Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee of the US EPA and chairs the FDA Tobacco Products Scientific Advisory Committee. Dr. Samet served as editor and author for reports of the Surgeon General on smoking and health since 1984, receiving the Surgeon General's Medallion in 1990 and 2006 for these contributions. He was the senior scientific editor for the 50th anniversary 2014 report, and Dr. Samet received the 2004 Prince Mahidol Award for the Global Health awarded by the King of Thailand. He's also the Dahl Winder Award from SRNT and the Edward Livingston Trudeau Medal from the American Thoracic Society, American Lung Association, and the 2016 Freeze Prize for Health. He was elected to the Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences in 1997. The other little piece about Dr. Samet, he and I served on the Young Epidemiology Scholar Award. So this is a program Robert Wood Johnson Foundation had a number of years ago, offering college scholarships to students who did really long, amazing projects for high school students who had never learned concepts in epidemiology. And through that process, learned what an outdoorsman that he is, really at any opportunity he gets to, in all your spare time, to get outside, enjoy the outdoors, and I think really a role model. So without further ado, Dr. Samet, if you come forward.
Let's go to the pictures.
Okay. I can see this, but you can't.
Let's do this for a second.
Okay.
Do you want me to kiss the woman out there?
Once again, also not too.
So I think while we're getting the slides up, I'll just make gratuitous comments. Thank you so much for this honor. I'm delighted to be here to give this presentation, and appreciate your recognizing me. Make a few comments. I'm delighted with the company I'm in to be here with Noel. We were reminiscing that we think we started on the Epidemiology and Disease Control Studies section when there was only one in 1982. This involved carrying a very heavy box of grants from wherever you were to Washington. And the most gratifying thing was after you reviewed a grant, you got to throw it into a big trash bin. I've admired the work of Dr. Mona, and her steadfast performance in the light of the media in using evidence to advance public health. She was just terrific, and a model that I held up to students as this was unfolding. To Tyler, if I get to that book, but I'm going to give it a try. I will say, and this is a comment to Tyler and also to Noel, I spoke at the retreat of the Department of Epidemiology at Harvard earlier in the year. I reviewed the curriculum when I was there. There were 8 courses offered by the Department of Epidemiology. 2 of them were practicums, and there were 3 methods courses, including 2